So the first thing we want to do is identify which part of the profile will rest against the wall. And obviously I got a red mark there, but the orientation on the wall is as such. Usually the cove is always at the bottom of the crown molding. Couple of scrap pieces of wood. These are about 36 inches long. They can be longer or they can be shorter. But we just want to make sure just roughly that this fence is equal to or greater than the projection of the trim. And so the first thing we want to do on the saw itself is we want to set the depth stop. So right now, you know, if we cut, we would cut all the way through the product. So we want to set our stop, and I've already preset this using the, you know, the bolt there for the depth. And as you can see, we're not going to cut all the way through it, but we are going to cut, you know, through the back of the fence and through the bed of the jig. So kind of center it. Right now it's not, it's mobile. Throw a little bit of activator on that back portion of the bed. I use PVC cement on this build just for the longevity, especially in this area here where you may be cutting through the fence. You want it to be more stable. And then just like with our trim, a few dots of the super glue or the 2P10 just to get that quick fixture. Make sure everything's seated against the fence on the saw, and then we'll just flip this over and seat it against the fence. And again, about 10-15 seconds, and we should be good. So the next thing we want to do is, obviously we don't want this floating around, because once we make that initial cut, we want it to always be there. All of the saws will have some access point, some hole where we can insert a screw and lock a fixture or jig into the fence. So we're going to use that. Now we're going to go ahead and throw a screw in here, and that'll become our reference. So we can pop this off, pop it back on. We always have the same reference and the same location. So now we're stationary, we're locked. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create an auxiliary fence out in front of this to position the crown so it falls in the same angle every time it goes into the jig. So just visually, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to align the base and the top, make sure that they're setting flush, and we can just put a little ID mark there and here. And again, all we're going to do is throw a piece of material out in front of it to provide us with the right projection angle. And I'm just aligning right now to the marks that I made, the ID marks. Now, the red mark. So we put us a red mark here to mark wall. And what I typically will do is I'll take all the profiles that I'm going to be cutting and I'll just slide me a red mark so that I know that's the area that's going against the wall. So on our jig, I'm going to take and put us a red mark on the jig or fixture. And that way when you approach the saw, you'll know red mark to red mark, or this is the wall, this is the ceiling, this is the wall, this is the ceiling. Because when you're cutting the crown molding, you're basically cutting it upside down and cutting it in reverse. So with the jig made, everything's set, fences are set, we'll just make our 3 cuts, our 90 and our 245s, to establish where the kerf will be. Okay, now that we have that, this is kind of a sacrificial piece, so we'll make a couple of cuts. Again, this will just lay in red line to red line, and a lot of times I'll make me a little gauge block, something for me to visually look at here at the saw. So for an outside cut, outside corner, this is what the cut would look like. So this would be like a right hand outside corner.